Greetings again. Our oral history broadcast is on the air once more. I'm Ray Mofield, and we're visiting in the home of Judge Artelle Halton and his wife here on, I guess we could call this Hardin Road. It's US 641 South.
It was 2610 Main Street.
610 Main Street.
2610.
2610 Main Street. Okay, we'll get it right in a minute. Judge, thank you for letting us come by.
Well, I appreciate it a lot, and thank you for coming.
There are a lot of Haltons in the county. We had a sheriff by that name one time. Are you related to them?
Yes, Joe Tom, and he's a third cousin of mine.
Uh-huh. So you were a native Marshall County?
Yes.
You were born about what part of the county?
Right here on this same farm.
You're at home,
Yes.
for sure, aren't you? Your roots right here. Well, good. And your father's name?
Hardin Halton.
And your mother?
Mary Halton.
Mary Halton, and before she married, she was
a Sires.
Sires. So we got the Haltons and the Sires together there. You remember, say, any of your grandparents? Or?
Yes, I remember the grandparents on my father's side, but I don't remember them on my mother's side.
Where did the Haltons come from? Have you done any genealogy
Well,
study? Or?
My grandfather came from North Carolina when he was 4 years old.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know where the originally came from there, but he came here from North Carolina when he was 4 years old.
Now, if you were born right here, Judge, and your dad lived here, I guess he was farmer.
Yes.
And you grew up and you knew about, suckering tobacco.
Sure did.
Worming the
Yes.
stuff.
I farmed too for a long, long time.
Yes, sir. Since you were born at this place and lived here, I suppose you went to Church Grove School.
Yes, Church Grove.
You remember any of the teachers you had?
Hilda Height was my first teacher. Then I had several more, Frank Beasley, Charlie Bondurant, and Thelma Jones. I'm going to tell a little tale about Thelma Jones.
Good.
She would, of course, then they had a library table up front the teacher sat behind,
Mm-hmm.
and she'd sit up there and lay her head over the library table and go to sleep. And all the children would go out in the yard and play. After a while, she'd wake up and come out and ring the bell, and we'd line up and go back in the house, and school would start again. But we did that lots of times.
Well, that made a good recess period.
Sure did. Then I had Mary Ann Jones, and my last teacher at Church Grove was Genora Pellbeck.
Well, I certainly remember her. She.
And I had Naaman Duke, too, at Church Grove.
Uh-huh. Naaman Duke. I well remember him. I remember my dad telling about he ran for something one time because Dad told about he came by, was riding a horse, and early days. So Mother had dinner about ready, so Dad said, would you like to eat dinner with us? They called lunch dinner,
Mm-hmm.
of course, as most Marshall Countyans did. And he said, yeah, I believe I will. So they had the usual farmer's fare, which I still enjoy, things like fresh corn and fresh sliced tomatoes and Kentucky Wonder snap beans and okra and I don't know what all, cornbread. That Loman, or not Loman, I'm thinking of Loman Trevathan, I guess. But Mr. Duke really enjoyed it, he said. And the days of campaigning, I suppose, have changed a little today. They try to get you to spend all you've got on television.
That's right.
But then they went and looked you in the eye and shook hands and even ate lunch with you if they had the opportunity. So that was the good old days.
Well, that was hard work, too, of canvassing the county back in those days, or any time you went house to house campaigning was a hard job.
Oh, yeah, surely it was hard work, no doubt about that. All right, you went to elementary school there, and you worked on the farm a while. Did you, you grew up about the time that you were getting ready to start off life. I presume you had to go to World War II. Is that right?
Yes, I did.
Were you married before you left?
No, I was married after I got in the service.
Uh-huh. Well, tell us where you had to train.
Well, the first place was in Camp Pickett, Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
Then went to Camp Blanding, Florida. Then to Camp Forest, Tennessee, and Pool, Tennessee maneuvers.
Mm-hmm.
And we left there and went to Yuma, Arizona, the desert in Arizona.
Oh, yeah.
Maneuvers there. Then to Camp Phillips, Kansas. Then overseas.
Were you preparing in that one of those places, say, for the North African campaign, or?
Well, no, I don't think so. I think it's all European probably.
Uh-huh. Where were you sent after you went overseas?
Went to England.
So you stayed there, and were you happen to be part of the D-Day?
No, but we were, I forgot now, I think it's D-Day is on, was the 6th or 8th of June? 6th, wasn't it?
6th of June, yeah.
I believe we went over, 5 or 6 days after D-Day.
Well, they had those things laid out in stages and waves as they were, if they met their objectives, they'd keep sending troops, which of course they did. Thank the Lord the invasion was successful in a measure, at least. They eventually won. Of course, they lost a lot of men, and I suppose you would in any modern war, or ancient war for that matter. What part of the service were you in?
I was in the infantry division, 79th Infantry.
Were there any people from this county with you in any of those?
Well, it was 2 or 3 boys that was in the 79th Division, but they wasn't in the regiment I was in.
Uh-huh.
Most of them was, well, they just there from every place.
Uh-huh. Now, when you were training, I believe you said Joe Lawrence Henson, or Washburn, excuse me. There is a Joe Lawrence Henson. I guess there may be a lot of Joe Lawrences, but Joe Lawrence Washburn.
No, he was just inducted in the service when I was.
Uh-huh.
But he done left Camp Fort Benjamin Harrison, Indiana. That's was his
up near
induction
Indianapolis.
center.
Yeah.
And he'd already left there when we got back.
Yeah.
They would come in there with get a cadre, a cadre take the certain branches of service.
Yes, sir.
And happened to be that they came in, he was in the medical corps and got a cadre for the medical corps, and he got in that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, after I got back, Fort Benjamin Harrison, the first thing came in was infantry.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to go to infantry.
The ball bounced that way for you.
Went to Camp Pickett, Virginia.
I remember an old song that says, "What do you do in the infantry? You march, march, march."
Well, that's true. Plenty of marching.
Yeah. I heard a story once about Joe Lawrence that you and perhaps others had asked for a furlough, which you could get after completing part of your training.
No, it was an induction center.
Induction center, okay. And you got what, 10 days?
10 days.
But they always ask you what you wanted to do?
Well, I probably I don't remember too much, but I remember that about Joe telling me he had 7 acres of corn to plow, and they said, well, you ought to plow it in 7 days, and he gave him 7 days furlough.
When everybody else got 10. Well, okay, we'll laugh at his expense. I guess he'll laugh with us.
Why, sure, I know he will.
Yeah. Okay, you went into Europe. I guess that was a rather grim period for you. And were you wounded in Europe?
In France.
In France.
The Battle of St. Lo.
Mm-hmm.
My outfit, the 315th Infantry, 79th Division, captured Cherbourg. It was one of the first places in France to fall. Then we took a break, then we started to drive, and that was the Battle of St. Lo. And that was, they said, was one of the worst battles fought in World War II.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I was wounded.
My brother-in-law, George Blumenberg, was in the Battle of the Bulge, and of course that's later than what you're talking about. And he was in that group that was cut off, and the Germans took a number of prisoners, and he stayed in prison for a while. But he laughs about it now, says he was lucky, you know, they treated him reasonably well. Considering the shortages they had in their own home economy, they ate about as well as the citizens did, I suppose. So. But many people had it very tough. A boy across the road from me at Hardin, George Allen Tucker, Corbett's son, Corbett and Opha's son, was in that battle and was killed. And I guess that must have been up toward the end of the war, 45 or something like that. How long did you stay in Europe?
Well, wasn't over there too long. See, I went in right after D-Day, and I was wounded the 6th day of July. I wasn't in combat too long.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, from June to July, just a month or so, yeah.
Less than a month.
And they sent you back to a field hospital probably, and then your wounds are pretty serious.
Yes, of course, they, when I was wounded, that it was late in the afternoon. I'm going to tell this story because you remember Fred Newman?
I surely do, the Paducah historian who wrote all those books.
Well, he wrote about this, but I don't know where he ever got his information, but he wrote a piece in the paper about this a long time after I even came home from the service. But after I was wounded about 6 o'clock in the afternoon, and over there it doesn't get dark in France till about 11 o'clock at night.
Mm-hmm.
And of course they gave me a shot, and we carried some pills in our ammunition belt, and they gave me those, and I went to sleep. Well, they first the lieutenant came back there, and I told him, of course it gets cool over there.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted to take his field jacket off, coming up, and I said, no, you should keep your field jacket. You'll be out here all night, and they'll pick me up.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody found a German overcoat. I probably took it off with a dead German,
Mm-hmm.
and brought it back there and covered me up with that German overcoat. Well, they didn't pick me up till after dark. It was way after 11 o'clock that night. Got a jeep in there and picked me up.
That coat felt pretty good by that time.
I imagine it did. And they carried me to a field hospital, and they carried me in a tent, so, set me down on the ground. Wasn't a thing in that tent but me. Directly carried me in another, and wasn't nothing that. I don't know how many of those tents they carried me through till I got to the operating room.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, of course, I was conscious,
Mm-hmm.
and they said, oh, we got us a jury. And I told them quick that I wasn't a jury. And they, of course, I was covered up with that German overcoat.
Uh-huh. They thought you were a German.
Yeah, because I was covered with that German overcoat.
Yes.
And so they started working on me, and I asked them if they couldn't wait till I got to sleep. And they said, no, it's too much to do after you go to sleep. Something got to be done and done now. They was shaving my legs.
Mm-hmm.
And next day before I woke up, and I was in another tent.
Yeah.
But Fred Newman wrote a piece in the Sun Democrat about that German overcoat.
That German overcoat. Well, it turned out to be valuable for you. I suppose they'd have gone ahead and tried to save the German's life too.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess as soon as they heard of Marshall County and talk, they knew you didn't grow up in Germany.
They treat them all. I mean, they treat them all. German or American didn't make any difference. They tried to save them all.
Yeah. Well, that's of course the doctor's oath, is to try to bring back everyone to health that they possibly can. And then you were returned to America not too long after that?
Well, in October.
Yeah.
I stayed in the hospital in England
Uh-huh.
from the time I was wounded till October.
So they did the temporary work that they had to do at the time to save your life, and then you went back to England and stayed 2 or 3 months
Mm-hmm.
until you could be flown back home. Well, of course, that gave you a tremendous handicap, but you came back home, and I don't know how long it was, but I remember when you were the judge.
Well, I came back in 46.
Uh-huh.
I spent 21 months in the hospital before I was discharged. Then,
You went through a rehabilitation training and fitting for prosthetic.
no, I didn't have to lose a leg then.
Oh, they didn't give you an artificial leg at the time.
No, I was wounded in both legs.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent 7 months with one leg in traction and the other with a cast on, flat of my back on a bed, and I couldn't even turn over for 7 months.
That's my idea of torture.
They could raise me up some, but I couldn't.
Uh-huh.
I couldn't turn over or anything. When I was laying down, I was flat on my back, but they'd raise the bed up and give me a little elevation in the daytime.
You'd have given $1,000 if you'd have had it turned over.
And one leg in traction had a big brick hanging on the end that was
Yeah.
pulling, and the other one was in a cast. And I laid that way for 7 months. And I was
Well,
that way still when I came from overseas.
Our liberty in this country has not come cheaply. has
No,
it?
it sure hasn't.
Well, we owe a great debt to people like you. Of course, many of us went into service and were much luckier than you were and came back all in one piece. Some of us did practically nothing, like myself. But we went wherever they sent us.
We had to.
Yeah, we did.
There was
And
no choice there.
We had no choice, and I guess under the spirit of the times, we didn't think too much about choices. We just accepted the fact that that's the way it was. We did want to save our country
Sure did.
back in those days. Well, how did you, when you got back and you were able to, how long was it before you were fitted with an artificial leg?
Well, see, I just had this leg amputated 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I had both legs, so 5 years ago.
Oh, I see. But I didn't realize that.
But the right one was I was wounded in the ankle,
Mm-hmm.
and it never did completely ever heal. It would take a spell, it'd break down and have drainage.
Uh-huh. So
And-
you walked with crutches, didn't
No,
you?
huh?
Or,
No, I didn't walk with anything.
yeah.
And so it just kept giving me pain and pain, and I went to the Veterans Hospital. It'll soon be 13 years. 12 years ago last January at Nashville. And they looked at it, and they decided they'd go in there and remove all the dead bone. They did.
Mm-hmm.
Then they took some bone off my hip and gave me a bone graft.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, I'm out of the woods now. I'm going to get all right. In about 5 years, it started giving me trouble again.
Mm-hmm.
And I went back to the Veterans Hospital, and Dr. Brooks is head of the Vanderbilt orthopedic section, and he's also the main doctor at the Veterans Hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew him because I'd seen him the first time. He came over there and he said, I think you've got all the mileage out of that one you're going to get. So they amputated, I said 5 years, it's 7 years ago. It was 1980.
Yes, sir. So it didn't turn out to be the good news you'd expected. You had to
Well,
lose it, and
I'm better off without it than I was with it, because I was in so much pain with it.
uh-huh.
And now, of course, it don't give me any trouble. The left one now is the one that gives me the trouble.
But there are a lot of old sayings and superstitions and so on in Kentucky and perhaps all over the South, maybe the whole country. But I've heard people say that if you had a leg cut off, it still hurt.
It does. Sometimes, even today, and that's been 7 years ago, last March.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like my toes is hurting.
Mm-hmm.
No toes down there to hurt, but it's
But the nerves that
Nerve.
ran to the
That's right.
toes are still in the upper extremity there.
those nerve ends still, something touches them and
Uh-huh.
sets that off.
Well, I'd heard that story, and I don't know that I'd ever had a chance to talk to anyone
Well,
about
it
so-
works.
Yeah.
It's
You know.
a strange feeling
Yes, sir.
sometimes to think your foot's hurting when you don't have a foot.
Uh-huh. And people like myself who've not experienced that, they wonder about it. Well, you did eventually get into politics. Had you been interested in politics as a young man growing up?
Well, not necessarily. I don't know. Some of my friends asked me why I didn't run for county judge.
Mhm.
Well, before that, a brother-in-law of mine, John Henson, I guess you remember him.
Oh, yes.
He wanted me to run, and some more did, for sheriff before I even got out of the service.
Mhm.
And I didn't want to do that because I didn't want to be tied down.
Yes, sir.
Then I decided I believe Mr. J. McGregor too asked me to run for county judge. He'd been county judge, and they asked me to run, and so I got in the race, and that was 1953.
53.
Mm-hmm. And I served 2 terms as county judge.
Well, a county judge is sort of a business manager, or really, I guess you could, if you wanted to, you could use the term mayor of the county, sort of.
Well, it's changed a lot. See, they don't have their...
You don't have the judicial responsibilities that you once had.
That's right.
Now, in your day, you had to try all the cases that were not big enough to go to circuit court.
That's right. And you had all traffic tickets and everything. Everything that was the county judge's job.
Now, that made a pretty big headache.
Sure did.
Everybody's wanting you to squash this ticket for me.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, they've taken all those civil cases of the, I suppose they call them minor nature, and they've taken the city courts, the old county courts, and put them under a district judge now. So that frees the county judge executive to really...
Well, actually, his main thing now is just running the county's business.
Yeah. He's chairman of the legislature, which is the magistrates.
Well, he was then.
Yeah, you had that same
That's
job
right.
on top of all this
That's
other.
right.
Well, I guess...
Of course, I guess they probably have more now to do than they did then.
Well, there are more districts. They've organized fire districts and drainage districts and forest districts, and there's a hospital district, and I don't know what all. And I guess the county's business, as you say, has just naturally grown anyway as our population has moved up from, about 12, 15,000, I guess, when you were judge, and now it's
well, I don't recall how
26
much
or
it was,
7,
but it wasn't too large then, I know.
Yeah, it's about doubled since that time, as
That's
I
right.
remember. So I suppose Mike Miller still has enough to do, but
Well, I suppose he does too. I'm sure of that.
yeah. Well, I thought you did a good job as judge.
Well, thank you.
We,
I tried to.
You, I imagine, had plenty of headaches, and yet I guess there's a certain kind of enjoyment in serving your fellow citizens.
Well, yes, it was. I was enjoying it. Of course, I had the headaches.
Yeah. Well, let's get over to your wife for a minute. Where did you meet her?
Well, she was from Marshall County. She was Mr. Marion Anderson's daughter.
Uh-huh.
And,
That sounds like fair dealing
it
when you
is.
start talking that. Yeah, okay.
And of course, we was going together before I went in the service. I went in May and we got married in November. She came to Jacksonville, Florida. I was married in Jacksonville.
Uh-huh. Yes, sir. Well, do you have any children?
Yes, I have 2. I have a daughter, LaDonna, and she married Bill Fuqua, and they live in Reedland. She teaches school at Reedland.
Uh-huh.
And I have 2 grandsons. And David, the boy, is still at home.
Tell me why grandparents seem to be so much more fond of their grandchildren, at least they're accused of that,
Yeah.
than they were their own children.
Well, maybe they have more time with them.
Yeah, I imagine.
They're older and
Sure.
and we have more time.
Uh-huh. and
Of
children.
course, see, David's not too old. He's only 24.
Yes, sir. Well, that's right. He's just
It's
by my standards, just a baby
Yeah.
boy, more or less.
There's 14 years difference in our children.
Uh-huh. Well, that often happens, or sometimes happens at least in families, and we nearly have two different generations
That's right.
there, don't we? Well, he's got plenty of time to have a family of his own.
Oh,
yet.
yes.
Okay. And your grandchildren live at Reedland, so they're near enough that they can come to see you.
Oh, yes.
And you can go to see them. Well, that's very good. Do you want to tell us about how you think Marshall County has changed, Benton has changed since you grew up? Now, when you were going to Church Grove School out here, that wasn't US 641, was it?
No, it's a Murray Road.
Mm-hmm. Just the Murray Road, and it was gravel,
Yes.
I suppose. And the Sinkhole Hill was pretty tough to get over.
Well, of course, you didn't go, it went around it down by the old Church Grove Church.
You dogged off to the right down here,
Yes,
didn't you?
and it was a little road, a little lane up there. You would turn, go up to the sinkhole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I've heard
I helped build this road when they built it.
Well, that is about 29.
Yes,
And they used, my dad used to say, horse scrapers.
mule. There's a wheel scrapers, and they had mules.
Uh-huh.
In fact, right here in my field, I had a biggest pond back there, and it had about 2 acres fenced in back there, and they had 250 mules in there.
The fellow that, if you gave him a job feeding the
Well,
stock at
my
night,
dad fed them. He'd take them all day to feed them. See, the mule was gone, and the only time they eat was at night. They didn't have nothing to eat at noon at all. We take them out and give them some water,
uh-huh.
but they didn't have anything to eat, and all those mules were just fat and slick as they could be.
But they were beginning to want their feed, I
Oh
suppose.
yes, they'd
by the
eat
time-
all night then.
Yeah. I guess you had to give them plenty of water, some hay, along
Oh,
with
they
it,
had
with the
big
corn.
mangers, fill those full of hay. They haul hay out by the truckloads and put in those mangers, kept them full, and all kind of oats and corn and Omaline mule feed. Just fill those things full, and they just eat all the time.
I remember coming to Big Singing in 1930 with my Uncle Kelsey Warren in an old, well, it's a new car then, it's a Model A 29, so it was only about a year old. And that road had not then been graveled. It was dusty as it could be. 1930, if you recall, was the driest year, I suppose, in West Kentucky history.
I think they gravelled it in the fall of '30, didn't they?
That fall,
Yeah.
they put gravel on it. But in May, when Big Singing was, it was just plain dirt.
Big gravel pit right here behind Charlene's house. That's where they got the gravel
Uh-huh,
for 4 miles of it.
uh-huh. I know they were looking forward to it, and then it's about, 3 more years, as I recall, they put some blacktop on it.
Well, I don't recall just when, but it was some time afterward. They used to gravel for so long, and they'd keep it graded.
I believe 1933 they put a thin coat of blacktop on it, and maybe the next year or so they redid it, made it a little thicker, which in 33 the budgets of the state and county and even federal governments were kind of low.
Now they need to make it wider. It's too narrow.
Yes, sir. Now this bypass from the toll road going around Benton into Murray, the new 4-lane part is beautiful.
Yes, it is.
Well, in a way, I guess that gives us 6 lanes to Hardin.
Yes. But I can tell the difference in the truck traffic on this road here since they opened the bypass.
Yes, sir.
Of course, we still have quite a few, but nothing compared with what we did have.
Well, we're just about to run out of time. We got a minute and a half or so. Do you have any special story you'd like to tell? Something we've forgotten that you'd like to make sure you get on before we...
No, not that I can think of right now.
We are certainly pleased that you allowed us to come, and you've cleared up a number of things in my mind that I didn't understand, for example, and especially about the limb that hurts you from time to time, feels as if your foot were aching. Yeah, that's, I'd heard those stories, but never really had a chance to ask anybody about it before. Well, Judge, we appreciate your cooperation.
Well, thank you a lot, and I appreciate you coming.
It's a real pleasure to be here with you and your wife on this lovely home. You have a beautiful home here, nice lawn. I see you from time to time, or at least I have in the past, riding a lawnmower.
Yes, I keep it, but it hadn't been too big of a job here lately.
Not in the last month or so. It's
Oh,
burned up.
Right.
I'm Ray Mofield, and this is our oral history broadcast. You can always, incidentally, find these tapes, check them out, play them. They're in the Benton Library.